Pretty cool. Yeah. I think everybody that lives,
Yes.
Ron?
Got the same hues. I like that.
everybody that lives.
Welcome
Gotta get your nails.
to the Oregon City Council regular meeting for June 12th, 2023. The time now is 7:02 PM, and we will open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Ross, will you take a roll call of councilmen present?
Mr. Davish? Mr. Drake?
Here.
Mr. Horniak? Mrs. Paula?
Here.
Mr. Reeves?
Here.
Mr. Wallenczak?
Here.
Mr. Zale?
Here. Council, Mr. Davish will not be joining us tonight for a personal problem. Can I get a motion to excuse him from tonight's meeting?
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Council, any objections? Mr. Davish is excused. Also, Mr. Horniak has advised me, he was out of town, but he's trying to get here. He said he might be 5 or 10 minutes late to the meeting. So we will leave that at that for the moment. The next item that we take care of tonight is the approval of the meeting minutes from May 22, 2023 regular council meeting.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
I move to approve the minutes from the May 22, 2023 regular council meeting as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Counselor, are there any objections? Hearing no objections, the meeting minutes from the May 22nd, 2023 regular meeting have been approved. The first business that we have for the evening is a public hearing. And this is an application for an SUE 179-23 for a special use exemption in a R1 low-density residential district for the purpose of operating a brew pub, winery, Airbnb, and food trucks on parcel number 44-24264, located at 500 or 5002 Seaman Road. The applicant is the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. And I will defer to Mr. Gilmore to give us a little more insight into this special use exemption.
Thank you, Council President. This went to the Plan Commission May 9th. They recommended for approval to you guys. And as you said, it's going to be a brew pub mainly, okay, with food truck. That's the first phase. And then they may, in the future, want to have an Airbnb. They just wanted the flexibility to be able to do that. But I'll answer any questions that may arise, and I'll give you the best information I can.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmore. So question I have for you right now is regarding the Airbnb. Is that going to or is that going to be used for part of the old residence of the fire station? Is that what they're going to use that as, or?
It wasn't clarified, but I assume that it's going to be part of the stay that the firemen used. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmore. Council, any other questions for Mr. Gilmore?
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves?
thank you. Mr. Gilmore, the food trucks, is that going to be like a permanent thing, or are they planning on eventually, if things go well, of putting in some kind of a small bar, like bar food or things like that, or do you know, or if it is, or was that discussed?
Yeah, Council President. Yes, that's their business model is to use a food truck exclusively, one per night. In other words, there are not going to be several of them. But I don't believe they plan on putting a kitchen in.
You believe they do?
I believe they're not going to.
They're not going to?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Mayor.
and I'd like to make a couple of comments and then probably we'd allow the applicants
Absolutely.
to make a presentation. But as Mr. Gilmore stated, that the Planning Commission did vote for approval of this request, and it was a vote of 3-1. I just will let people know, I am the 5th member and I was not present that actual evening. I end up being served on a jury on a murder trial, and they wouldn't let me out. So yeah, I will say this, if I was there, it would have passed 4-1. And so I was very much in support of it, and I felt bad that I couldn't get there, although I tried very hard. So, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council, any other questions for Mr. Gilmore? Hearing none, I would like to invite Tim or Troy or both Burns to come up and give us a little bit of a presentation of what you do plan to do. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Troy Burns, I'm a Swanton address, 2070 County Road D, Swanton, Ohio.
Okay.
I have a little bit of a presentation here. I can just go through a couple of the slides, just kind of talk about and answer your question concerning the food trucks. I'll do that first. We currently utilize food trucks pretty much every night, and we alternate food trucks. One, it allows us to support the local community more than just us. It allows us to branch out as well, which is kind of why we do that. And then the regulations with owning, doing food inside of a brewery, it involves getting the health department and all that kind of stuff involved as well. That's kind of why we avoided it. To say that we would never open a restaurant in the facility, I can't say that. I don't know. We don't know how this is going to work or anything like that. But to answer your question.
Thank you for the clarification.
So, but I can go through a couple slides here real quick if you'd like. This is kind of the layout as what we're looking at on the inside of the building. You mentioned the Airbnb. What we kind of talked about, if we did an Airbnb, we don't even know. It was just something that we've thrown the ideas out there. It gives us an alternative option for a couple of the open spaces. But what we looked at it as you could come and enjoy a brewing experience. So you might stay the night there, and the next day you brew with our brewer to experience how to brew beer and to kind of get involved in what we do here more than just it's just not an Airbnb to rent out to anybody. Kind of that is what we were kind of looking at. We don't even know that would even happen. It's something that we were throwing ideas. It gives an alternative for that space though. Because it is a residential space currently. Our purpose, I know I mentioned this when I talked the first time, is we're not a bar. I know that's the kind of misconception. If any of you guys have been to our facility in Waterville at all, we're not a bar. I consider it more of, I'll say, like a social type club. People don't come and sit there to get drunk. They come to enjoy craft beer. And it's different than going up and enjoying a Michelob Light or something like that. One, most people don't get drunk on $7 or $6 beers. They're going to do the $1.50 stuff. But it's not like that. What we encourage is communication between people. We want people to come and socialize. Our current location, we have one TV, and I would be willing to bet it's off 95% of the time because we don't really want it on. What we want is people to come and enjoy each other's time together and get to know each other better. So I mean, in the last year, I've made more friends than I've made probably my entire lifetime doing this. It's been truly a treat to enjoy getting to know the community and getting the community to know us and who we are and what we stand for. So this would be kind of the building front. Our intentions would be to put glass garage doors in, one, so you can see visually what's going on inside, see the brewing operations from the outside. And it just provides more, free light to the environment. And so we would have outside picnic tables. In the summer, we would open the garage doors and allow people to sit on the patio and discourse in between both areas while we're eating. And then we would also have live, I'll say, acoustic style music. We typically do not have like full bands or anything like that, but we do have acoustic style music that is amplified, but not super loud like you would. I'm sure you could ask people here that have been here, they can tell you exactly what it's like coming to our facility. So in our intentions were to structure it such that we would, we would have, if the doors were open, we would have it so that the noise reflects away from the current housing, more out into the field and park area instead, just to try and be, conservative and, towards the people around, and respectful of those around us. So. And then this is kind of the initial parking layout we were looking at with what is existing there. We would put sound buffering up in front of the parking and along the back edge. There's already a wall on it would be the east side currently. The south side, we would have to put up some more bordering there just to protect the neighborhood that's there. And then also along wherever the parking is along the edge of the road as well. Any other questions that I can?
That's the future.
Oh, yeah, and then this is kind of a future expansion as we grow. We looked at removing the grassy area out in front and would provide additional parking as space is somewhat limited in the area. And also potentially removing the back building that is also on the property as well. So, and then inside we would have seating opportunity for, live local music. We like to stay local. We like to, again, it's our opportunity to give back to the community and bring people in that are part of the community. So we try, with the food trucks or with the local musicians, they're all, almost entirely local people that we're supporting. So we also have private meeting room for having private events if somebody wanted to have a birthday party or something like that as well. So.
Mr. Burns, if this is approved, what's your timeline on this?
We plan to get started, providing you guys our approval of it. We plan to get started right away. Our goal would be definitely be up less than a year to be up and operating.
And how many vats do you have going?
That's a good question. So right now in our current facility, we have 16 and we're on a 3.5 barrel system. So we're looking at a 7 barrel system for this. We would probably be, half to 3/4 of that. So maybe 10 vats. It would be that we would brew into for fermentation. So.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments? Mr. Drake?
Mr. Burns, thanks, Mr. President. I got a question. I know I was at the zoning meeting when you had it. And I don't know if it was a citizen or maybe one of the people on the zoning board asked about possibly having ballards in front there where the picnic tables.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody went to drive through or.
Right. Yeah, actually, we can do that, no problem. What I want to do, whatever we do there, though, I want to make it decorative. I don't want just a cement pole standing in front of it. I want to make it look good. I want it to be attractive to the community as they drive by. So.
Okay, and I got one other question. The Waterville store,
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever been bit? Because I know at the last meeting you said you allow dogs in there.
No, it's one of the requirements. I mean, we tell everybody that brings their dog in to make sure that they're friendly, pet friendly. We have not had anybody get bit at all. So actually, I'm actually quite amazed at how many people come in and their dogs just lay down. Very, very little barking, if ever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Council, any questions or comments for Mr. Burns?
Mr. President, I do have one comment I want to make about the ordinance
Mr.
itself.
Major, go ahead.
Thank you. So if you look at the ordinance itself and look at the terms, or I'm sorry, I call them terms and conditions, but the conditions of the SUE, it's a pretty extensive list of items that have been feathered in here that the potential new owners would be willing to adhere to. So, we wanted to make sure that all of us, because of who you are and what the building is and what it means to this community, because it is the first city building in Oregon, and it's something worth preserving. But also being cognizant of the neighborhood around it. I think there's a lot of support, at least from what I've heard. I think others have heard is there's a lot of support, but we also wanted to make sure that there were guardrails in place too, so that if you look at like the time of operation, it's not going to be open until 2 a.m. If you look at the, the sound buffering and everything that's included in this, there are a lot of guardrails and what I call guardrails in place to help preserve the homey feel of the neighborhood around it. So I just wanted to point out that that is why all of these are in here, and that was something that the new owners would agree to.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Council, any other questions or comments for Mr. Burns?
Mr. President.
Mr. Horniak.
Yes, just a comment for them. Since this process has started, I've had a lot of conversations, I think, with you guys and with folks out in Waterville as well. The one thing that keeps coming through resoundingly is that you guys are good community supporters, good community neighbors, and good community businesses to have. I know just in talking through, some of the restrictions and things on here, you guys have been very willing to really kind of talk and go through what's the best thing for the community, how do we lay this out, parking, all those things that come into that. And I wanted to say, I know the community is largely very excited to see you guys come in. And I just want to say I've appreciated your guys' professionalism and coming to the table, wanting to be a good, responsible member of the community. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Council, any other questions or comments for Mr. Burns? Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Thank you.
Next, I will ask if anybody else in the audience is in favor of this, please come to the podium, state your name and address. If you want to make a comment and being for this particular ordinance.
Jordan Buck, 3655 Pickle Road. I think this opportunity holds tremendous promise for our community, offering a multitude of benefits that will positively impact our economy and enrich our cultural landscape and benefit Pearson Park. Craft breweries distinguish themselves from traditional bars through their focus on beer craftsmanship, emphasis on local sourcing, dedication to civic engagement, and unique social environments that are both family and dog-friendly. They offer a distinct experience that combines artistry, creativity, and a strong sense of community. Craft breweries have become more than just places to enjoy locally brewed beer. They have become a pillar of community engagement and economic growth. The University of Toledo's own professor of geography and planning, Neil Reed, co-published a study on the relationship between craft breweries and property values back in March of 2019, and found supporting evidence that these establishments can significantly enhance property values. In fact, the study found that single-family homes in the center city neighborhoods experienced nearly a 10% increase in value after a brewery opened within a half-mile radius. Such an increase demonstrates the potential positive impact this craft brewery could have on our local real estate market. Beyond financial implications, a craft brewery will breathe new life into the old fire station, transforming it into a vibrant community gathering space. It would become a hub where both residents and visitors can come together, socialize, and enjoy locally crafted beverages. This new brewery location will serve as a catalyst for cultural and social connections, fostering a strong sense of civic pride and identity. Furthermore, the positive impact of the brewery will be extended to Pearson Park. The brewery can collaborate with the park authorities, organizing events and activities that enhance the overall park experience. For example, I could easily see a 5K that goes through Pearson Park, attracting visitors, generating revenue for both the brewery and the park. The Toledo Metro Parks has already had success in collaborating with local breweries in the past. They even currently have a brewery located within Oak Openings Park, Heavy Wheelhouse. Therefore, I wouldn't be surprised to see these organizations complementing and supporting each other by attracting more visitors to our park, providing an additional recreational option, and bolstering our community's reputation as a vibrant and attractive destination. A few weeks ago, I visited Buffalo Rock's Waterville location for the first time with my wife. The warm and welcoming atmosphere they cultivated within their establishment impressed me. The overhead doors and patio seating makes it very inviting. The brewery fostered a sense of inclusivity and provided a space where individuals of varying ages and backgrounds could come together, connect, and engage in meaningful conversation. Families with children and pets were present and welcome. The noise level was minimal. I noticed that they had installed sound absorbing panels to aid in this. Music was played at an appropriate volume, loud enough that you could understand the lyrics, but quiet enough that it could be easily tuned out, making it very easy to hold a conversation. In conclusion, this proposal represents an extraordinary opportunity for our community. The economic benefits, cultural enrichment, and community engagement that will stem from this endeavor cannot be understated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jordan. Is there anybody else who'd like to come up and speak in favor of this ordinance? Come on up. State your name and address for the record, please.
Tim Schwamberger, 550 North Wind Road. Good evening, council. I'm here to support this. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for Oregon to have something new in the area for gatherings. I've been to the one in Waterville. Absolutely not even so much as a raised voice of anybody wanting to fight. Everybody gets along. I haven't even heard a whimper from the dogs or nothing. It's quiet. You can actually hear people talk when the acoustic is playing. Like Troy said, it's just a wonderful place for a gathering. I know there was some concerns at the rezoning committee about why people did not want it. One being people walking their children in strollers on the road. And we have hundreds and hundreds of miles of walking parks in this area, along with biking. And I guess I don't understand why someone would want to walk their child on Seaman or Wind Road in a stroller. There was another concern about the schools. The school's a mile down the road. Troy and Tim won't open till 4 o'clock. Most of the traffic for the school is already gone. I don't know exactly what the issue would be for having a brewery on the corner. I don't know if they're afraid of the traffic, but you can't drive anywhere within a 2-mile area without running into someone that serves alcohol or has alcohol. There was also a point of taking it to the Bayshore Supper Club. Well, that's a residential, and there's a school almost directly across the street from that. So I guess I don't see what the difference is okaying that compared to here on, Wynn and Seaman Road. I'm totally for this and hope you get your votes, and thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to speak in favor of this ordinance?
My name is Steve Kearing. I live in Eden Park, 5057 Dove. My only thing about that, I think it's a great idea. I think it's wonderful for the fire department that the building's going to be preserved and used for something other than for kids to go in and destroy, because that's what would happen. It would get vandalized at some point, and it's gonna wind up being torn down because nobody else is going to move in there. We got somebody that wants to make good use of the building. They appear to be a good neighbor. My only concern is coming down Wynn Road. There's no sidewalks there to walk down Wynn. They're putting them in front of the subdivisions, but the few houses there that would butt up to the brewery to have no sidewalk in front of there. And I see that the requirements have them put a sidewalk in on that side of their business. But I just wonder if the city's going to put one through to the Eden Park subdivision so that those folks can walk up also. Because currently there is no sidewalk there. That was my only concern about the whole thing. I think it's going to be a very good project. I think it's going to be good for Oregon. I think it's going to be good for the park system. And I strongly urge this council to pass this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. President.
Mr. Mayor.
And sir, I'd like to address that sidewalk issue. In our city, we do not order sidewalks in unless they're petitioned for. So it would be kind of tough for us to force, because they're paid for by the resident of those particular places. So what we would do, we'd check to see if there was any funding sources, you know, and if we could, we may consider doing it, but just order in at someone else's expense. unless-
I
So
understand,
we'd
yeah.
be conscious of it.
My concern wasn't ordering somebody to put it in. My concern was the city to put it in. You know.
I understand, but remember, when the city requires everyone else to pay for their sidewalks and they just kind of start handing them out, it's a little
Well,
bit.
maybe we can have a fundraiser at the new brewery to put the sidewalk.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. President,
Rodney?
uh,
Schultz?
just to follow up on that, so in order to get the sidewalks in on that side, there's limited right of way, so there would need to be right of way acquired. It's very difficult because actually the center line of Wynn Road is more on the west side of the roadway, so there's not as much room. However, we are going to be replacing the water line along Wynn Road and Seaman Road. One thing we discussed was potentially working with the Metro Parks and putting in a stone walking path on that side, so that way people could cross the street and go down at least to the neighborhood and cross there. So that way it would provide some pedestrian circulation. But it would be difficult to get it on the east side due to limited right of way. So
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. Is there anybody else to speak in favor of this ordinance?
Good evening, council. My name is Mike Hall. I live at 3609 Star Avenue. Fundamentally, I'm excited about seeing this project go through, but I'm wondering, why are we going to be allowing pets? Is it state pets in the, as part of their permit? They're going to have pets there. Is it just dogs?
Mr. President, if I may.
Mr. Major?
If I may answer.
Sure.
That's a business decision on their part. That has
Okay.
nothing to do with the city.
All right. Because if we're gonna have pets, PETS, so you're gonna have cats, you're gonna have chickens, pigs, cows, what else are you gonna bring in on a leash inside of a business? I don't like cats or dogs or anything at Home Depot, Kroger's or Kmart or any place else. I don't know if a brewery is the best place for them as well. Perhaps consider changing that obligation or requirement or whatever, but I'm for the project. I think it's going to be a great thing for the city, but I just don't understand the pet issue there, okay?
Yes, thank you, sir. But that, like Mr. Major said, that is the business owner's decision to do that they allow that. It's not a city thing. I mean, we don't,
Right.
we didn't require
But
that.
the city's going to allow it.
Right.
He says, I need pets, but, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else to speak in favor of this ordinance? Is there anybody here to speak opposing this ordinance? Hearing none, I will close. Council, do you have any more comments before I close this public hearing?
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I was able to reach out to residents in the neighborhoods, the Drake, the Vineyard, Eden Park. Wanted to see if they had a concern about an establishment like this going into their neighborhood. And in all the residents that I spoke with, not one resident spoke against this coming in. They were all excited about it and thought it being great value to their neighborhoods. I just wanted to express that.
Thank you, Mr. Wallensack. Council, any other comments before I close the public hearing?
Mr. President.
Mr. Horniak.
I would echo Mr. Wallensack's comments. When the project first came up, my question was there other locations that made more sense, understanding their business plan, getting to know them, what they do and how they do that. And then having discussions with, I would say, more than 3 or 4 dozen individuals in our community. Had one person that expressed concerns about that type of establishment on the corner. When we talked about what it actually would be, they seemed to be okay with the concept of it, that it's not a bar, it is a brewery that's set there. But this is an exciting thing. This is a good thing for our community. I think it brings a lot to that. And I think it also sends a signal to other places that Oregon is open for business. We can make sense of it. This model has worked. We've got several restaurants that serve alcohol that operate in residential communities, and I think this one fits right along with that. And I think knowing the owners and getting to know them, I think this becomes a very good opportunity for us as a city. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak, and I will kind of echo your statements here too. I know that on a weekly basis, myself and a lot of my friends visit a place in Toledo, much like this, where we do trivia night every night. It's just a wonderful evening, and there's never any issues. I mean, everybody's just very friendly. It's a really nice atmosphere. The thing I was excited about when Mr. Major brought this to me, I can't think of a better thing to do with this old fire station than this particular. This is wonderful, in my opinion. A great use of this building. It does preserve the building, and looking at the rendition of what the front would look like, I think it's absolutely fantastic. I agree. I think it's going to be a very great thing. Council, any comments or questions? Hearing none, I will close this public hearing at 7:34. Council, any objections? Hearing none, this public hearing is closed. We will now move to item 83, 2023. And I will ask Ms. Ralston to read it into the record.
Authorizing a special use permit for parcel 44155514 for property located at 5002 Seaman Road for the purpose of operating a brew pub, winery, Airbnb, and food trucks on the property in an R1 low-density residential district.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Horniak.
I move for passage of ordinance 83 of 2023.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Ms. Ralston, would you take a roll call vote of council?
Mr.
for Ordinance
Horniak?
83.
Sorry, my apologies. Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mrs. Pauloff?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 83, 2023 passes with 7 yeas and 0 nays. Now we conclude this. Oh, 6, I'm sorry, you're correct. We are minus a council person. 6 yeas and 0 nays. Those of you who are here for the public hearing that don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, you're welcome to leave. Or you can stay. And if you want to sit around and listen to the rest of it, that's fine.
You know, nobody ever stays. Nobody ever takes the option.
And Mr. President, I do have one question for the historians.
Yes, Mr. Major.
That is the original.
This will be the first brewery in Oregon. Is that correct?
Yes.
Ever?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they did wine.
Yeah, wine.
It's
was
winery
here.
though. It's winery.
Winery was here.
Brewery. This is
First
the
brewery.
Okay.
And for those walking out, I'm told they will have bicycle parking spaces. That was the first question.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Wallensack.
thank you. Mr. President, I'd just like to ask the mayor, he may know this answer. That fire station was the original city building, correct? That we operated the police department out of when the city was incorporated and out of the township? I think it's a great thing that we're preserving the original city building. You know, be it a brewery, be it whatever it's gonna be, to preserve the original building for the city of Oregon's governance. I think that's a great thing.
I think the mayor should authorize some kind of historical marker regarding just what you said for the front of that building.
Yes,
In architecture.
1934 was when the original
Yeah.
building was.
I think you should do that.
Or is it just-
Okay, council, since we did not have a committee of the whole meeting last week, we need to add items 84 through 89, 2023 to this week's agenda.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, items 84 through 89, 2023 are added to this week's agenda. The first item is item 84, 2023, which is presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Fire Chief Clayton O'Brien, and I will defer to Chief O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is for our annual physicals. So each year we offer NFPA 1582 firefighter physicals to all 76 members of our fire department. We did put that out to bid, and the amount that you see there will not exceed the $36,890.
Thank you, Chief. Council, any questions or comments on item 84, 2023? Is this the same company we had last year?
It is, yep.
Okay.
BioCare is the same company we did have last year.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no other questions or comments, I will assign item 84, 2023 as ordinance 84, 2023, and ask Ms. Rolson to read into the record.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to enter into a service agreement with BioCare Inc., 1778 Holloway Drive, Suite A, Holt, Michigan, for the purpose of providing physicals for the fire department personnel at a cost not to exceed $36,890 and declaring an emergency.
Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Pauloff,
I move for passage of ordinance 84 of 2023 and declaring an emergency.
thank you, Ms. Pauloff.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallenzak. Thank you, Mr. Wallenzak. Ms. Rolson, would you take a roll call vote of council on ordinance 84?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 84, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. The next item, item 85, 2023, is also presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Fire Chief Clayton O'Brien, and I will once again defer to Chief O'Brien on this item.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance has to deal with Lexipol, who is the provider of all of our policies and procedures at the fire department. And this is for a 3-year agreement. We've had Lexipol in place for a number of years now, and this is just to continue that.
Thank you, Chief. Council, any questions or comments on item 85? Hearing none, I will assign item 85 as ordinance 85, 2023, and ask Ms. Rolson to read in the record.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to enter into a 3-year agreement with Lexipol LLC, 2611 Internet Boulevard, Suite 100, Frisco, Texas, for the purpose of purchasing annual fire policy manuals and daily training bulletins and declaring an emergency.
Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Pauloff.
I move I move for passage of 85 of 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Pauloff.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallenzak. Thank you, Mr. Wallenzak. Ms. Rolson, will you take a roll call vote of council on ordinance 85?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, council. Ordinance 85, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. The next item is item 86, 2023, presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and Acting Public Service Director Rodney Schultz. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Council, I think you're aware of all the water main breaks we had along Wynn Road. We were called out and Mr.
Bless you.
Dale, no one more than you probably realize it's not a nice day when you find out you wake up or your water shut off. So being that the condition of that water line was in such shape that it required constant maintenance, Mr. Roman had been looking for an avenue to try to improve it, and this was the best. Mr. Schultz is here to give you more details on it, but yeah, I think the people in that area will be pleasantly pleased when this gets in effect.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Schultz?
Mr. President, yeah, so we were able to enter in or work out an agreement with Janet Romstadt in terms of the easements that are necessary to make the connection. We're looking, once we have the easements in place, our water department will actually do the work in-house. So we came to the agreement this past week, so everything's in place. So
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. They were feverishly working on that pump at the end of my street again this week.
yes,
have any
that's the
idea?
storm sewer.
What's
Yes,
that?
That's the storm pump. One of the, I think they're having issues with one of the pumps, so we're still looking into it.
Thank you. Council, any questions or comments regarding item 86?
Mr. President,
Mr. Drake?
Mr. Schultz, is that the water line that runs in the, under the pavement? It's gonna be replaced?
This one's just time, we're making a connection there along Navarre, so this is running perpendicular to Navarre.
So it'll be in the grass?
Yeah, it'll be through the farm field.
Okay, all right, thank you.
That's why we needed the easement, so we're running it perpendicular.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Drake.
Thanks.
Council, any other questions or comments? Hearing none, I will assign item 86 as ordinance 86, 2023, and ask Mr. Olson to read the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into an agreement with Janet M. Romstadt, trustee, for the acquisition of 3 permanent water lines and 1 temporary construction easement for the Navarre Avenue to Park Place Waterline Loop project and declaring an emergency.
Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Paulo.
I move for passage of ordinance 86 of 2023 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Paulo.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Mr. Olson, we take a roll call vote of council, please, on ordinance 86.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 86, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. The next item up for discussion is item 87, 2023, presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and Law Director Melissa Papura. And I will defer to Ms. Melissa Papura.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is to enter into an agreement with the Lucas County Data Processing Board for the Payroll and Human Resources Service Agreement. Oregon Municipal Court utilizes the Lucas County payroll system to submit timesheets and other additional payroll systems or payroll information for the judges, the acting judges, a portion of both the bailiff and clerk of courts payroll. Lucas County Data Processing Board has entered into an agreement with Oracle HMC Corporation to provide these services. And Lucas County is now offering a limited, non-transferable, limited license to the Oregon Municipal Court to submit this information for its payroll. This comes at no cost to the city. If anyone has any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Papura. Council. Hearing no questions, I will assign item 87, 2023 as ordinance 87, 2023, and ask Ms. Rolson to read the record.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to enter into an agreement with Lucas County Data Processing Board Payroll and Human Resource Service Agreement and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move for passage of ordinance number 87 of 2023 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Wallensack.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Ms. Rolson, would you take a roll call vote of council on ordinance 87?
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yep.
Mr.
Yes.
Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes. Thank you, council. Ordinance 87, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. The next item up for discussion is resolution 88, 2023, which is presented by Mayor Michael J. Safarian and City Administrator Joel Major. And I will defer to Mr. Major.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the Health Department District Advisory Committee met in April to discuss this, and we're just getting it on the agenda now. But this agreement that we've been in with the Health Department for many years, ever since the merger, hasn't evolved a whole lot. But some of the changes that were discussed included some of the term limits for board members, but more importantly, they gave more definition to the in-kind services that are provided by the City of Toledo and Lucas County Board of Commissioners, since the Health Department is housed in a building owned by the City of Toledo, and I believe on property by the commissioners. So I know that there are a lot of in-kind services that are provided, and being from the City of Toledo is where I came from prior. And the last item had to do with cost allocation. And that's on, there's no page numbers in the agreement, but in section 8 on this and cost allocation, actually gives a lot more definition to how the costs are spread out amongst the different communities that are part of it, which I think is neutral for the city of Oregon, but helps kind of capture the growing townships that are in Lucas County. And there was a lot of vagary in the old language, and now it gives a lot more definition and cites the U.S. Census Bureau as the source of information for how costs are allocated. So I can say that the next agreement, we do make an annual payment to the health for this health department services, and our payment will stay the same this year and next year, and then will escalate as inflation increases. So be happy to answer any questions if anybody has them.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Council, any questions or comments regarding Resolution 88?
Mr. President,
Mr. Drake?
I got a question. I read through this earlier and I see that Maumee, Oregon, Sylvania, Waterville, each has one person appointed by the mayor with approval of council. Do you know who the current representative is for Oregon?
I forgot her name. I could picture her, but I only met her the one time. Sorry.
We can get you that,
Yeah.
certainly.
Okay, I was just curious. And then I see the price, you know, they have it broke up into price. Do they go by the amount of people, I'm assuming?
Yeah, it's based on residency.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake.
Mr. President,
Mr. Horniak?
my question goes to the same with the allocation. In the following paragraph, it does talk about that it's a portion due to population. Seeing that this is a 5-year agreement, I don't foresee any large swings, but Mr. Mazur, is there a reopener at some point in time? Does that apportionment get re-examined based on population within the life of this contract, which appears to be 5 years?
I believe we do have a schedule for payments, and Mr. Roman's not here either, but I think it went to him, but I did see an apportionment estimate from year to year. So there is a little bit of an escalator due to, kind of inflationary for the 5 years.
Yeah, understand
But
that, but as far as
in terms of-
reallocation due to population, that's not foreseen in the 5-year contract?
No, not in this contract.
Okay.
I believe, and I can't answer that because it wasn't discussed, so I could find out the answer.
Yeah, I think what you're asking, is there a periodic review?
Correct.
of what
Is there a
the- what the
reassessment of the
population of
allocation?
our city is? It doesn't generally change a whole lot, but
Well, the last census, I think Oregon's population were up 0.17%. So Oregon
Yeah.
did go up, but I think the census, and I was gonna topic for another time, but it does show Oregon going back down again. But I think that's just based on, algorithms that they come up with, and that can be argued too. So.
Okay.
thank you, Mr.
I think
Horniak.
actually the cost allocation piece of this, if it's not neutral, might benefit the city of Oregon based on the population
If
trend
growth
for us.
happens over that same 5-year period.
Yep.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Mr. Major. Council, any other questions or comments regarding Resolution 88? Hearing none, I will assign item 88, 2023 as Resolution 88, 2023, and ask Ms. Rolson to read it to the record.
Authorizing the mayor and finance director to enter into an amendment to the Regional Combined Health District Agreement between communities within the geographical jurisdiction of Lucas County to extend the agreement for the period of January 1st of 2023 to December 31st, 2028, and declaring an emergency.
Council,
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallenczak.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for passage of resolution number 88 of 2023 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak.
Second.
Second by Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Mr. Rolson, would you take a roll call vote on Resolution 88?
Mr. Wallenczak?
Yes.
Mr. Horniak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Zale?
Yes, thank you, Council. Resolution 88, 2023 Passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. The last item up for discussion this evening is item 89, 2023. Also presented by Mayor Michael Safarian and City Administrator Joel Major. Item 89, 2023, and I will defer to the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President. And council, you're looking at a negotiated contract for the pay range between the city of Oregon and what I'll be asking you to appoint, or who I'll be asking you to appoint a new building commissioner in the city of Oregon. Building commission, or the chief building inspector and wastewater treatment superintendent with a class 4 permit are probably the two of the most unique positions in the city, because in the private sector, those people don't exist. So we end up with a situation where we trade with other communities that have them and they move around. That's why it's very important for the city of Oregon to maintain the desirable place to work, so we can attract quality individuals, which we believe we have in this case. So with that, we had to come to agreement, and this is the agreement, item 89, to create the pay scale for the chief building inspector.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Major, you have anything to add?
I just wanted to point out that the pay range for this position is on par with the finance director and the IT director positions.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Council, any other questions or comments regarding item 89, 2023? Hearing none, I will assign item 89, 2023 as ordinance 89, 2023, and ask Ms. Ralston to read the record.
Revising the pay range for Commissioner of Building and Zoning Inspection, non-bargaining, and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Horniak.
I move for passage of ordinance 89 of 2023 as an emergency measure.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallenczak. Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Ms. Ralston, would you take a roll call vote of council, please?
Mr. Horniak.
Yes.
Mr. Wallenczak.
Yes.
Mr. Drake.
Yes.
Mrs. Paula.
Yes.
Mr. Reeves.
Yes.
Mr. Zale.
Yes, thank you, council. Ordinance 89, 2023 passes with 6 yeas and 0 nays. And we have no one signed in to speak before council this evening, so I will move to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council, I have several things that you have correspondence for appointments tonight and a retirement. I'm going to start first with from the Division of Parks and Recreation with a couple seasonal appointments, and I'd ask council's concurrence in the appointment. 2 individuals, Evan Materney of 4033 Edgeview Drive, Oregon, step 1, $15.25 an hour, and John Newton of 2623 Eastmoreland Drive, Oregon. It doesn't say, but I'm guessing that is step 1, $15.25 an hour also. We'll go with that. And if it isn't correct, we'll correct it next 2 weeks from now. So I'd ask council's concurrence in the appointment of those 2 individuals, Evan Materney and John Newton.
Council.
Oh, wait a minute. Effective date, June 12th, 2023, I'm guessing. It says 22, but go with 23.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves.
I move to concur with the mayor's appointment or recommendation for approval of the job description and the classification for Evan Materney and John Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Second by Mr. Horniak. Councilor, is there any objections? Hearing no objections, Mr. Mayor, council does agree with the classification change request.
Okay. Now I will go to, I'm going to ask council's concurrence and Mr. Gilmore sitting over there, and he is asked to retire. And so he's got his retirement resignation effective July 7th, 2023. Jim, you want to say anything?
Well, I just have to say,
That's
I appreciate that, by the way. I just have to say, I enjoyed working here and serving Oregon for the past 15 years. In fact, I was mentioning Joe earlier that when I came over from Toledo, I was only going to stay 6 years and I ended up staying 15, so that tells you something.
We had you on the payroll after that?
Yes.
So, once
Thank you, Mr.
again,
Gilmore. Thank you.
accepting the resignation retirement of James Gilmore effective July 7th, 2023. And I'd ask council's concurrence.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reeves?
Mr. Mayor, what happens if we don't concur with it? Does he not, he
We're
doesn't get
pushing
to
him out the
retire?
door anyway.
Okay. I move to concur with the mayor on the retirement of Mr. Jim Gilmore. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallenczak.
President, before we accept that, can I say something also? Yeah, thank you. Mr. Gilmore, I want to thank you. I know there's many times that I've called you and residents generally call council members and ask for assistance. Whenever I called, you were always there to answer the phone and help our residents and allow me to be the conduit to the residents to get those questions answered. I want to thank you for answering those calls and helping. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, Mr. Mayor, council does accept the formal retirement of Mr. Gilmore, and I will pretty much echo exactly what Mr. Wallenczak just said. Yes, we do get questions about things that do involve Mr. Gilmore a lot, and if I call Mr. Gilmore, he calls me right back every single time. I mean, he's just always been a pleasure to work with. Thank you very much, Jim. Next.
Okay, and with the retirement of Jim Gilmore, we will need a chief building inspector. He's sitting in the front row. I'm going to ask council's concurrence in the appointment of Stephen E. Shrake, 2020 Parkwood Avenue, Toledo, Ohio, 43620. Salary pay range 42, step 4, non-bargaining pay scale, professional supervisory technical employees, which is 540956 per hour, or an annual rate of 112,051.8 cents. And the effective startup date will be Monday, July 10th, 2023. And once again, I'll ask council's concurrence or in the appointment of Stephen E. Shrake.
Council.
Mr. President,
Mr. Horniak.
I concur with the mayor's appointment of Stephen Shrake to the position of Commissioner of Building and Zoning effective July 10th.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Who's second?
Second.
Mr. Wallenczak, thank you for the second. Council, are there any objections? Hearing no objections, Mr. Mayor, council does accept the appointment of Stephen E. Shrake.
And council, Steve Shrake is right in the front row. Steve, if you want to say anything, they'd probably love to hear.
Good evening. I prepared a couple short words. Mr. President, Mr. Mayor, council members, and Mr. Mazur, I really thank you for this wonderful opportunity. It is an honor for me to be a part of this great community. As a resident of the area for the past 33 years, I bring extensive experience as a registered architect, certified building official, floodplain administrator, and planner. I look forward to working with staff and all of you in continuing to make Oregon the best city in the region to live, work, and play.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay, now we will go with from the Division of Fire, and I'd ask council's concurrence because we're going to hire a couple of inspectors, and the first one is Paul E. Buer of 6433 Lakeway Drive, Oregon, Ohio, and it will be pay range 10, step 1, non-bargaining pay scale, professional, super, and technical employees, which is $28.59 an hour. The startup date is June 26th, 2023. And once again, I'll ask council's concurrence in the appointment of Paul E. Buer to the position of fire inspector, civilian fire inspector.
Do one at a time.
What's that?
You're gonna do one at a time.
Yes.
Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Paula.
I move to concur with the mayor's appointment of Mr. Paul Buer as a civilian fire inspector.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Council, are there any objections? Hearing no objections, Mr. Mayor, council does concur with the hiring of civilian fire inspector Paul Buer.
This also is the filling a position of civilian fire inspector, Tyler A. Wepler, 4148 Forest Scene Drive, Toledo, Ohio, 43614. The pay range is 10, step 1, also $28.59 an hour. And his startup date is also June 26, 2023, as council's concurrence in the appointment to civilian fire inspector Tyler A. Wepler.
Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Paula.
I move to concur with the mayor's appointment of Tyler Wepler as fire inspector, civilian fire inspector. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. Thank you, Mr. Drake. Council, are there any objections? Hearing none, Mayor, council does concur with the hiring of Tyler A. Wepler for a civilian fire inspector position.
Thank you, council. And next, from the Division of Streets, for the position of sewer camera operator, I'm going to ask council's concurrence in the appointment of Jeffrey Rogowski, 4457 Hellman's Court, Toledo, 43611. He will be placed in step 1 of the SD pay range of which is an hourly rate of $30.36 an hour, or an annual rate of $63,148.80. And the startup date is June 26, 2023. And I would ask council's concurrence once again of the appointment of Mr. Jeffrey Rogowski to sewer camera operator.
Council. Ms. Paula.
I move to concur with the mayor's appointment of Jeffrey Rogowski as the sewer camera operator for the Streets Division.
Thank you, Ms. Paula. Second by Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Council, any objections? Hearing no objections, Mr. Mayor, council does concur with the hiring of Mr. Jeffrey Rogowski, sewer camera operator position.
Thank you, council. And lastly, this is from the Division of Streets. It's streets maintenance worker. And I'd ask council's concurrence in the appointment of Jonathan Griffith, 208 Road Street, Northwood, Ohio, 43619. And he's to be placed in step 1 of the SVP range, which is $28.49 an hour, or annual rate $59 to $59.20. And the startup date is June 27th, 2023. And I'd ask once again council's concurrence in the appointment of Mr. Jonathan Griffith.
Council.
Mr. President,
Ms. Paula.
I move to accept the mayor's appointment of Jonathan Griffith as maintenance worker for the Streets Division.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
Second.
Second, Mr. Horniak. Thank you, Mr. Horniak. Council, are there any objections? Hearing no objections, Mayor, the council does concur with the hiring of Mr. Jonathan Griffith for a street maintenance worker position.
And several of those individuals are here tonight, and we usually draw a name and require them to come up and speak for about 20 minutes about why they wanted to apply here. But does anybody want to say anything? Tell them who you are and.
I'm Jeff Rogowski, and I'd like to thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council, for offering me the opportunity of employment with the city of Oregon. I'm very proud of the position. So thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
My name's Jonathan Griffith. Thank you, council. Congratulations on your retirement. It took me 4 years to get in here, but all well pays off. So thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
You don't get to talk. You were already.
Paul Buer, of course.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity to continue to serve the city of Oregon in a different manner.
All right. Thank you. Welcome, Paul.
Congratulations,
Welcome
Paul.
back. Hey, I'm good.
Mr. Major.
Thank you, Mr. President. I was just going to comment about Mr. Buer's congratulations on your retiree hire. I just wanted to say a few words about Mr. Gilmore. Jim and I have known each other 12, 15 years, somewhere around there. We've traded some and been a part of some really good, epic Cardi war stories. So epic, yeah. Especially the ones that had to do with the Southwick Mall. I remember those. Those were good. And no, it's been a pleasure getting to know you over all these years. And I know it's not the end, but definitely nice to get reacquainted with you too. And I really appreciate your, your knowledge and your calm demeanor in intense situations. I could go on and on about, all the good qualities that you've exhibited through the years, even through the storms. So really appreciate you. And I was really excited to hear that you were here. You were still here when I came here, and I'm sad. I'm personally sad to see you go. So thanks for everything that you've done. I also want to say something about Mr. Shrake. Steve and I are just now getting to know each other a little more, and in my mind, I refer to him as the professor because he teaches the stuff at University of Toledo or had. I just wanted to say that I think that if we would have done a national search for this position, I don't think that we would come up with a better person. So I really appreciate you accepting the position and being here with us. So congratulations again. Mr. President, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Major. Ms. Pepora.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Ms. Pepora. Mr. Schultz.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Schultz. If you sit in, you're required to have a report of some
I can make one up if you want. No.
Mr. Reeves.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Mr. Drake.
No report.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Mr. Wallenczak.
No report this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Wallenczak. Ms. Pauloff.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to say thank you to Mr. Gilmore because you've answered a lot of questions. A lot of residents get upset and you were really on the ball answering a lot of questions. So thank you for that and enjoy your retirement because I do know that you really are looking forward to it. Also too, the last 2 weeks, fire and safety have been really, really busy with the dryness, fires popping up everywhere, Pearson Park, garages, houses, all kinds of stuff. And I really want to thank the fire department for really being on their toes the last few weeks. Because you guys have had a lot of calls. And it just goes to show how well organized things are getting and just how on the ball people are getting. So I really, really appreciate that. And I want you to know that it is noticed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pauloff. Mr. Horniak.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, to Mr. Gilmore, same sentiments. I worked with him on a lot of different things. Always appreciated the common sense approach, kind of the calm in the storm, if you will. Always looking for what's the way through and opportunities to move things forward. So I always appreciate that and wish you well in your retirement. From my standing committee from Economic Development, I would like to call a meeting of the Economic Development Committee for June 26th at 6 PM, which would be immediately prior to our regular council meeting. So that, again, that'll be on June 26th at 6 PM, and we'll plan to do it in chambers here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. And I don't have anything from my standing committee. I just want to add that this weekend is the Polish American Fest, the GAF, which is a great time. You get a chance to stop out there. I know Mr. Drake will be there.
24/7.
Polish picnic.
Yeah. And that's all I have. So I'll look for.
Mr. President, if they're charging for parking, mine's half price at my place.
No, they don't. Thank you, Mr. Reeves.
Mr. President,
Mr. Horniak.
if I may, I did fail to add, Ms. Pauloff brought this to my attention. The Economic Development Committee meeting is to discuss the town center status update and to review the final, we hope, revision of the plan layout for the parcel. So just to clarify what that meeting is for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Horniak. And with that, council, I would seek a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves. Second by Ms. Pauloff. Counselor, is there any objection? This meeting is adjourned.